Hi, today is the 26th of October, and my name is Robert Sutz, and I'm interviewing Dotty Dodd on this very day. So, but now you can begin. And
Hi.
Always look right in there.
Hi, my name is Dotty Dodd, formerly Dora Aberbach. I was born in Vienna, Austria, right before Hitler came into and took it over. I mean, Hitler was an Austrian to begin with, but that's when he came. And my parents, my father they were Jewish, and he was smart enough not to stay. A lot of people at that time ended up staying in Europe longer, and it was dangerous. But my father was a lawyer there, and he found out about refugees that go to China. So my mother, they left their family, they left everything. In fact, I don't even know what happened to any of my father's relatives at all, or anybody. And we came to China, and it was smart of him because later on the Jews were taken to concentration camps, and luckily we were in China. And many Jews were there, from Russia, France, all countries were there with me as a child. In fact, there's another artist called Peter, well, I forgot his last name, but he's a famous artist, and I just saw him a couple months ago, and he and I were children in Shanghai together. So that was, to me, was wonderful to see somebody. What are the chances of meeting somebody from China? And I went to school in China, and my father worked there he made clothing. He opened up a clothing store, which many Jewish people did at the time. He couldn't be a lawyer there. So he did that, and my mother went around and measured people for it. She worked with him, and they built the business. And then my mother told me that later on he died of typhus, but he didn't. I found out much later, in fact, a few months ago actually, that he'd been murdered. And I don't know by who or why or anything. So my mother was a survivor, and she was in Shanghai in a strange country, couldn't speak the language, with a child, and my father had died. And so she was got friendly with the president of the Chase National Bank of of Shanghai. And so they became friends, and later on they married. And he became my stepfather. And because of him, he had a passport, Swiss and American. As the war went on, I stayed in China till I was 8 years old, till the war was over. And then he was transferred to New York. That's how we came to America. Or if my father would have lived, we would have gone back to Vienna, where I was born, in Austria. But because he wasn't from there, she went with him. So we came to New York, and we were there just a short time, and they wanted to send him back to Shanghai. And he had been, I forgot to mention this, but while he was in Shanghai, it was a big thing, he was captured by the Japanese and put in a prison camp. And my mother used to sneak supplies in to the camp, and she was captured a couple of times trying to help people in prison camp. And he never told, but he was tortured and tortured. When the war was over, when we came to America, his company, the Chase National Bank, wanted to send him back to Shanghai to go back to the bank. And he threw himself under a subway in New York and committed suicide. So here was my mother again with a child and no husband, her second husband, and my mother wasn't even 30 yet. So
you were you were the only sibling?
Only sibling. I have brothers now, but they're from the husband now.
Yeah.
My father, the Jew, was the only one. He died when I was 3, my father, so I was little. So then we came, and my mother knew the president of the bank we came on the USS Grant from Shanghai, the ship. And on the ship, there was a worker there. He was next to the captain, first mate or something. And my mother, Freudiger, which was the name of my last name of the father, Walter Freudiger, the second father, was friendly with him. So my mother, when Freudiger died, he came to console her, and then in New York, and then she married him. And all this time, I never knew my history at all. My mother never spoke about anything. She actually told me my father was named Fritz and lied about everything to me. I never knew about my Jewish background, nothing. So then when she married Wally, and then I grew up, I went to school, we lived in Topanga Canyon, then we moved to Pacific Palisades, and I went to high school with a lot of kids, like in junior high, Emerson, with Sinatra's daughter, and he used to come to our school and sing, and we thought, that old fart, we don't want to hear him, we want Elvis. So we didn't understand, but anyway, and also Natalie Wood, and James Brolin. So I was in school with a lot of kids that were in that, because we all were bused at the time. They didn't have buses from Palisades and so forth. Then after I graduated, before I graduated from high school, I met a man older than I, 9 years older, and he talked my parents, they weren't happy about it, to get married. So I did get married.
Was he Jewish?
No. I didn't even know I didn't know. I told you my parents never told me anything. I'll tell you how I found out. No. So then, in fact, I dated a couple Jewish guys in school. I thought they were great, but I could have cared less. I didn't know anything. So then my parents weren't too thrilled. My mother especially wasn't too thrilled I was going to get married, but then they signed. And I had, with him, I had, my first son was when I was 18, and we had 2 children, a boy and a girl. And then he was a lot older, so therefore he was more mature than I was, much too young to be married. So finally, after we were married for 9 years, and I had started modeling even with my 2 little children, I decided I didn't want to be married because I was too young. I didn't understand. So I talked to him about it, and he told me, if you ever leave me, I'll kill myself. And so I said, oh, well, he won't. So anyway, so
I thought he was kidding.
Yeah. So we went to a psychologist, and I said, tell him what you told me. So he did, and he said, you can't tell a person that. You want them to stay with you because they want to, not because they're afraid you're going to hurt yourself. So anyway, after we went there, one day I came home from modeling, and he was sitting, and I took a nap on the bed, and all of a sudden I felt something, and he said, it's time. And I thought, what is that? He had a gun to my head.
Wow.
And he said, it's time to go. And I thought he was joking. I thought it was one of my little boy's gun. And he goes, no. And then I got terrified. I said, oh, please, Tom, please, I'll stay with you forever. No, you won't, because I said, yes, I promise. And so he said, okay, I won't do anything. And he walked toward the bedroom, but then I didn't hear him.
He was going to kill you.
Both of us. Yeah. And so then, and we had 2 little children. I said, they were in school. So he went into the bedroom, and it got real quiet, so I started walking down the hall. I said, please, just throw the gun out in the hall. I'll come in, make love to you, whatever you want. Just please throw it out there. And the next thing I knew, I heard a gunshot. He'd shot himself through the head. So he was dead. And I couldn't believe it. I ran outside. I was afraid to go in the bedroom. The neighbors came in. And, of course, he shot himself in the head, so he didn't live very long.
This is California?
Yeah, it's what I lived out. Oh, I forgot I had moved to Orange County. Just bought a home there. Moved to that. In fact, we had a small home in Buena Park. Then we moved where I am now, 5-bedroom house. That's where he did this. We hadn't even been there a year. And I thought, oh, my God, what will I...
You were married how long at that time?
9 years. So I was only 17 when The kids were little. Yeah, very small. So then I called my parents. I didn't know what to do. Anyway, I had to find a way. I thought, I can't afford the house or do anything. But my parents, luckily, my dad owned a New Pacific Lumber Company in El Segundo, and my parents had money. They lived up in the Palisades. My dad made money, so they weren't poor. So they said, whatever you do, don't get rid of that house. You'll never be able to buy one again. So that's what I did. I hung on to it, the home. And then later on, as time went by, I hope I forget so many things. I met the husband that I'm with now, and we got married. And
where did you meet him?
Well, I was modeling, and I was at the sports arena one day, and I had 2 children at home, and I had a nanny that lived with me. And so I was standing on a pedestal. We were advertised. They hired models to pose there. And he walked up to me, and he says, I'm not interested. There was a car. We were standing by the car. and in a little short outfit, you know. So I felt someone staring at me from the back. I turned around and he said, "I'm not interested in your what they're selling here, but how about we go have a drink?" And I said, "No, I don't even know you. You could be a serial killer for all." I mean, you know, I wasn't running quick. So then he goes, "Well, I'm here with a friend, or you have another model on stage, so let's all four go." So we did. And that's how I met him. And then he lived in Santa Barbara, and then later on moved out to where I lived because I wasn't going to drive to Santa Barbara to date. But I'm sure I'm forgetting all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so then we married and had a boy, and Stephen is his name. And, of course, the other kids were already grown because there was a lot of age difference between them. So they were married, and I had Stephen, and then I had Stephanie. And when they brought Stephanie in, they said, "Oh, she's perfect," and all that, and I took her home. And I kept looking, something wasn't right. You know, a mother has a feeling that something's not right. And she wasn't turning over, because I just had a baby. They were only a year or so apart. Wasn't turning over, and the doctors wouldn't agree with me. And then later on, I went to St. John's, Santa Monica, and the doctor came out. He goes, "Dottie, not everybody's born the same." She had cerebral palsy, so she was handicapped. And she's in a wheelchair today, although she's not retarded real bad, you know. Because her father one time was yelling at me in the car, not yelling, but, you know, and she says, "You've got to treat Mom nice." He goes, "Oh, it's my wife." And she goes, "Not for long." So she has a good sense of humor, so she couldn't be that bad, you know. Yeah. But as far as not walking and so forth. So then my mother and I were extremely close, but my mother never told me anything about my family. So when I was in my 40s, my mother wanted me to go to Europe. So I went and called the Austrian council and tried to get a birth certificate. They didn't have one. And I said, "You don't have a birth certificate? I was born in Austria." "No." I called my mother, and she said, "I get one for you. Don't worry about it." So she had an accent. So she got it, and when I got it, I said, "Why does it say Israeli Council on the top? And you told me my father's name was Fritz. It says Moses." "Well, I have to talk to you about it." And here I was already, I didn't know anything about my background, nothing. And so then I was that old before I knew why we left Europe, what happened, that my father had died, none of that. She told me we went to China because my father got a job. I mean, my whole life was lying. My mother, she lied about, I don't know if she was trying to protect me, but she really didn't tell me anything. Only because she only did it then because she wanted me to go with her to Europe, and I couldn't go without a passport. So then we went back. I've never seen one of my father's family. I went back and met her. Her mother had already died, but I met cousins and so forth in Austria. But no one else, not one person. And I always wondered about that side of my family because my mother was short, like 5'3", with brown eyes, and I have blue eyes, and I'm very tall, and 5'8", and my father was 6'3", with blue eyes, so I looked like him, you know. So anyway, is there anything you want to ask me, or keep going?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm trying to think of now. Steffi's born, and and then after she was born, I decided I need to go back to modeling. So I was older then, and you can't.
You were still married at that time.
To this husband, yeah. Yes. I had modeled younger, yeah, this one. And I thought I have to do something, so I decided, well, first of all, I went and got a license to be a hairdresser because I had no training in anything but modeling. So I got that, and then I thought, well, I want to model too, so I opened up my own modeling company. And I did fashion shows. I got my own models, music, entertainment, and did all the big shows in big hotels in Orange County. And I did it, you know, I learned as I went, but it was for charities. Like big charities would pay me to put the shows together. And I did that for several years. And it was a lot of work, but I loved it. Because modeling you can only do so long, you know, but that part I could do. So I did that for many years, and then I also, after that, when I got tired, I worked as a hairdresser for a while because I had the license I needed to do. So I did both. You know, I would do both to keep me busy. Yeah. With me, if I'm not doing anything, I feel like, why am I existing if I'm doing nothing? You know what I mean? I just breathe. I might as well be dead already. My mother was like that too, 85, still going and running and chasing, and that's the only way I can figure you can be.
Is she still
Oh, no.
with you?
We were so close, and she came to my home, and she had heart surgery younger than me, and had a stent put in. Oh, it was terrible. I was so upset. Anyway, so then after that was over, she came to my home. She was almost 85, 10 years later, 12 years later. I'm telling you, time passed. And she was at my home the day before, and we were always laughing and joking. Everyone loved my mother because she had wonderful sense of humor. She was like Zsa Zsa Gabor type, but funny.
You didn't tell the truth, though.
No, not to me. I had to find it out. Then she told, well, I have to talk to you a little bit. So anyway, so then she came to my house, and we were sitting there, and I looked at her, and she didn't look good. She was sitting like this. I said, Mom, please don't leave me.
When she's 85.
Yeah, I could see looking. She was always, please don't leave me. And she looked at me and she says, Dottie, she said, I know my body. Everybody has to go. And the next day my brother called me and said, instead of saying, sit down, be careful, your mom, he just says, your mom's dead. And I wanted to die. It was like he ripped the heart out. She was my best friend in the whole world. I could tell her anything. She was a good friend. And anyway, then she died and left her home. She's in the palace. My father died, my stepfather. He got Parkinson's. So he had that for years. And then he died right before her, though. She took care of him. He had Parkinson's. So then life changed for me. I felt very lonely because with her, I could tell her anything. She wouldn't get mad. Oh, I'll be quiet.
I should shut this off.
Am I boring you already?
No.
Oh. I probably forgot half of it, of the bad stuff. Oh, one time, I have to tell you this. I've always been, I have to tell you this. It's very important. I was a mother of 4 children, and one day I was going to the store. It was getting kind of dark, summertime, and I had forgotten something, so I told my husband I'm going to run to the store. And as I did, coming back out, 2 men threw me in the front seat of their car and drove off. And me, I'm feisty. I'm not the type of person, I don't know why I'm like that. I'm lucky I'm here. So they drove to a place that was like in back of apartments. It had already gotten dark. And the one driver had a knife, and he put it to my neck, and he was trying to tell the other one what to do and try to tell me what to do. I said, I'm not doing it. Well, then we'll kill you. I said, I don't care. Don't scream. They said, don't scream. So I screamed. God, help me, please. I have 4 children. Help me. And all of a sudden, there was a guy in front of the car. He had kind of light hair, and he was standing there, and I was yelling, and they saw him too. So they started to back up, and they got a flat tire. And they're going, like God didn't help. So it and all of a sudden the police came as they tried to escape, and I asked him, how did you find us? And he said, some man called, never gave his name, nothing, just said, there's a woman in deep trouble, you have got to go there. And they went to jail. I went to prison, and that wasn't the first time. And you know what they said after they got convicted? We picked the wrong bitch. That's what they said. That's a true story.
Wow.
Because I wasn't afraid. Maybe it's my background, but I don't like people threatening me.
You were tough.
Yeah. And they picked the wrong one, which is true. But I'm glad it wasn't somebody else. They'd probably be dead. So,
Close call.
yeah.
Close call. So what about extended family? Your mother's family or your father's family? Where are they?
I don't know. I don't know if they died in Auschwitz. No.
You have no
I would love to find. I would love to look in Europe if I could find just one. My dad had 2 brothers and a sister, and her name was Minna, and my mother was in contact with her somewhat, but I never saw anybody, and I was his only child. And his sister called my mother once to find out. That's the only one. But my 2, I don't know. Their whole family could have died in prison camp for all I know. I don't know. My dad escaped. But the rest, I have no idea,
But your father died.
Yeah, he was
Early,
murdered.
3 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my mother was a fighter, so she kept marrying to go places, because she wasn't really trained
And at that time, where were you when your father was murdered? And
Shanghai.
that's what, yeah.
I lived in the French concession on Route Manini. There was French concession, there was different areas. And this painter that I met, when I told him where I lived, we were children, he said, "Oh yes, what was his name? Peter Max.
Oh my gosh.
Him.
Oh, he's famous.
Yes.
Woo.
He was a kid with me in China.
Oh.
So when I went up to him, I said, "I don't care so much with the paintings, but you and I were," he said, "Yes, yes." And he hugged me, and then he said, "Where did you live?" And I said, "Route Manini in French concession." He said, "I lived right across the bridge from you. What's the odds of us meeting?" And that's who it was, Peter Max.
Amazing.
Yeah. And, of course, we didn't recognize each other I was a blonde kid and he was a kid too, so it wasn't the same. But, yeah, but I was so happy.
So how long were you in Shanghai?
8 years.
And then from Shanghai you came here to America?
I think we went to San Francisco, and then most refugees go to New York. We went to New York, where I lived in New York. And I went to some school there for a while, some number. They have numbers.
But you knew no one there?
No. I didn't even know what happened. My mother never told me anything.
But you loved her dearly.
Well, yeah, because,
Even though she told you a lot of lies.
Well, I didn't know they were lies, though, till later. And, I think she was trying to keep me, she always wanted to make everything sound good so I wouldn't feel bad, I guess. But I was mad because then I didn't know the truth about anything.
Yeah.
It's not right, So anyway, but I still love her. She's my mom,
It's wonderful.
Yeah.